I'm really struggling with words today. Words are not there for me.
I'm in the zone. I'm happy. I'm sort of fine battle. I'm enjoying this.
I think this is an issue of lockdown because I'm not seeing that many people. When I go to talk to people, I forget words.
This is Sheer Isolation. It's presented by Kieran Moore in Trowbridge and John Ponting in Cricklade.
Welcome everyone. It's Sheer Isolation. Kieran, you're in a different room today. Where are you? It's exciting, isn't it?
Today I am live from the Trowbridge Town Hall. So I've come into Trowbridge Town Hall tonight. I'm socially distanced. I'm on my own. I'm not in close proximity to anyone. And I'm here tonight to play about with the sound system and to play about with the lights. It's quite a long-winded, slow, arduous job, but I'm allowed to be at the house. I'm allowed to be at work, and I'm thoroughly enjoying myself.
Does that mean you're getting ready in some kind of anticipation of doing something in the town hall?
Well, John, I'm glad you asked. So last week we mentioned that we had Gavin on, and Gavin mentioned that we were going to be doing some live recordings, some streams with some artists for rural music Wiltshire. And now we did those recordings Monday and Tuesday this week. I've come back to the town hall, and what I'm doing is I'm assessing the equipment that we installed that I spec'd. I set it up, I've installed it, it's working. I'm now here fine-tuning things. So hopefully when the time comes, we reopen, we'll be ready to roll and everything will work as it should.
Cool. I am disappointed with your background though, because Trowbridge Town Hall has some lovely rooms and you've just got yourself in front of a white wall.
The town hall has some gorgeous rooms. I'm in the alleyway. The reason being is that I don't want to switch all the lights on in the venue because then I have to switch them all off at the end. I'm basically lazy.
Cool. Coming up in the next half hour then, we've got a tune from the Black Feathers, Cirencester duo. We are talking to Brian Keane, who, for anyone who's ever played or performed in Swindon in the last 15, 20 years, he will have at some point done your sound tech stuff. But Kieran, you've picked today's first tune, which I believe is a new track from a chap called Gary Martian, who I am not familiar with.
So I'll introduce Gary Martian to you. So when I was like 16 in Devizes, spending my dinner money on singles in PR Sounds, Gary was a few years older than me. He was at probably in sixth form. I didn't know him, but he had a band called Merrick. And Merrick sold their demo cassette in PR Sounds. You know, the old sort of cassettes with loads and loads of space, and you only put 3 songs right at the beginning and take up that much space. And I had this cassette and I loved it to bits. And then obviously fast forwards 8 years and I started doing gigs and I actually get to meet Gary for the first time properly. And he's in a band. I said, Gary, come and play for me. And he says, I'd love to. And so over the years, I've given all of his bands, a Smog Monster and Gentleman's Relish and all the others, gigs in Devizes. So this is Gary's brand new song. The only drawback is, I said to Gary, do you have a radio edit? Because this song is very long.
We are going to make a radio edit now.
he said the song needed time to breathe. I've forgotten how long it is, but I think it's over 6 minutes. So
it is, yeah. It's about 8 minutes in total.
Oh, it's too long.
So we will play about half of this, which is
perfect.
Away With You from Gary Martin.
On their way back, never the same.
And for those who are not familiar with Gary, that was his song Away With You, and he is a grunge maestro. He does grunge. That's him through and through. He's always been like that. Can't imagine he's going to veer too far from that well-trodden path anytime soon, but I do love a bit of Gary, so I'm glad he's back, although he has to cut down on the song lengths. I've got some product placement.
Yes, I was looking at that. It's a lovely piece of artwork. I'm guessing there's a bit of vinyl in there as well.
There is a bit of vinyl in there. There you go. It's Arms and Hearts and his record, The Distance Between. So, Arms and Hearts is a musician who's played for Sheer Music a few times in the past, in Swindon and Devizes. He's a really, really great guy. To me, he's always been one of those artists that's slowly improving and getting better. And then he released this album at the end of last year, and it's an absolute belter. It's absolutely fantastic. It's got a little bit of Gaslight Anthem vibe in there, that kind of folk punk singer-songwriter, but just really good example of the genre and a real career high for him. So loving that record.
Cool. Thank you for that, Kieran. It is time for us to chat about this week's guest. And I think we can hopefully make this one into a two-parter because he's a fascinating chap. It is Brian Keane, who I've worked with before quite a lot. Have you ever worked with Brian, Kieran, or do you just aware of him as another?
Yes, I've worked with him before, and I know the stuff. Yeah, we used to share the duties at the 12 bar, so 1 week he'd be in, 1 week I'd be in, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I've worked with him loads in the past. So
yeah, and Brian was but before the days of this show, when myself and Brian, we had a show on Swindon 105, which was, to be honest, very similar to this. We'd get of course talk about local music, play a few tracks, and we'd get live bands in every week.
If I had a gig on, I would send an MP3 of the band and say, "Can you please play this and advertise the show?" And as far as I'm aware, he always did. So he's a gent.
He is indeed, yeah. Now, Brian has retired from doing all the Sound Crew stuff now. So we caught up with him just to ask how life's treating him since retirement and just look back on some of his old stories. And Kieran, you were fascinated by some of you had no idea he had such a past.
No, really fascinating. It goes to show that you think you know someone, but you really don't. And it actually inspired me to invite a friend of mine that I used to work with on the session because of his previous work, Brian's previous work in A&R. So we're going to have a guest on who was a sales rep. So there we go.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, this is when we spoke to Brian earlier on. You've been in the trade and in the business for decades, you won't mind me saying. So do you want to give us a bit of an insight into some of your highlights of previous jobs and gigs that you've been involved with?
Well, after I left school, I worked in a record shop in London, in Tottenham in London, and then we had the reps coming in, bringing the music in and everything. So I got friendly with this rep, and I said, any jobs? And he found me a job at Island Records. I started there just on point of sale display, which is basically posters and the stand-up cardboard things they put on the counters, and I was in charge of that. And then one of the guys there's a guy called Scott Mullaney. He was into video, and basically there was an old laundry in the middle of the Island Records complex, which is like a big white house, and at the back was a complex where the studio was. So basically we commandeered the laundry and built a theatre studio type thing. So it had like a tiered floor, and so we had seats put in, good PA system and everything. And we used to have bands in. When the A&R guys went out to find bands, they would bring them back in, and we'd do a little show for all of the staff who would sort of, look at the bands and make a decision on whether they're taking them on.
What year was this? What period is this?
Was about 1972.
Wow. So did you have any particular success stories come out of those sessions, out of those A&R sort of shows?
Oh, loads. I mean, we had one particular day we had it was about a week actually, but
Yeah.
Each day they were bringing in bands. We had Blondie, Elvis Costello, Dave Evans, Rockpile. We had Ian Pitney.
Wow.
But, you know, all in to see
Yeah.
you know, whether we would sign them or not. And that's pretty much how it went. And then we had in there a video studio, which was one of the first, because video was a very young thing then.
Yeah, of course.
It was. And so we were doing sort of videos of the bands. And then we had a big long wheelbase transit van, which we converted into a mobile studio and took it out. And
Wow. That's bloody cool.
yeah, it was. It was a really nice time. And then I started going out on the road with bands and ended up with Ultravox. And I did a tour with Ultravox and Eddie and the Hot Rods and various other bands and artists as well. So
you told God, crikey, that's pretty cool to be hitting up with the likes of Ultravox.
yeah, I was their sound engineer for a while, and unfortunately at the time I just got married just before the tour, and I went out on the tour and came back a month later and sort of had an ultimatum from the new wife then. Either come off the road or you know, don't stay married. So I came off the road, and then Ultravox had a hit with Vienna, and that was the worst decision of my life ever.
No, you can't say that. What when you're describing that, although I wasn't even born in the early 70s, I'm already feeling nostalgic for that way that we used to do business. Because in the modern age, it just doesn't happen like that now, does it? Nowadays, you have to have 1,000 or 10,000 or 100,000 followers on Instagram or Facebook before you even get the chance to even look at doing anything else.
I think it's harder in a lot of ways. So you've now got the internet, and you've got Spotify and all that, and people might think it's a lot easier. But the trouble is that in those days you had to be really good to get signed to a label, and then the label handled everything. These days you can be really good and you put something out there on the net, and you're just like a minnow in an ocean.
Yeah.
You know, it's harder to find what music you want, and you don't have, as an artist, you don't have the backing that you would have had then. I mean, there are a lot of downsides to working for a label, for an artist, but
like creative control.
Well, yeah, all that, but that still happens. You know, I know artists now that have been down that rabbit hole and not enjoyed it.
Like with anything in life, it's just about what you agree to do or don't do.
Yeah. But generally, the people in record companies knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
And the great thing about Ireland was different from a lot of the others. So when I first started working there, Ireland was owned by Chris Blackwell, who was the heir to Cross and Blackwell Soups and all that. His mate was Richard Branson, and the two of them started by going around in a couple of vans, selling import records, mainly and stuff like that from from the West Indies. The company had its own fans, so people, if anything came out on Ireland, they wanted it. You know, it was good quality, and so that was one of the nice things about Ireland, whereas a lot of companies are very business oriented. Yeah. Although Ireland were, but it wasn't a rip-off business.
So what made you end up or relocate to Swindon? How did you end up after, touring with Ultravox and working for Ireland? How did you end up in Swindon?
So after I came off that tour and got the ultimatum, I came off the road, and then I went into working in the tape vault in Ireland.
Very cool.
And then basically I got made redundant. I wasn't useful anymore.
Yeah.
And then I had various jobs. And I've always been sort of technically minded. So most of my jobs were around being a technician for various companies. And I did work for a lot of event hire companies. So I used to put on events like the sort of Oscars type things. So in a posh hotel in London, big room, lots of sparkle, glitz, building the stage sets at the back, or designing and building, along with a guy called Chris Simmons, who is amazing. And we used to do all these events for different companies, and mainly black tie dinner type things, you know. In that process, I got offered a job so I was working for a company called Piccadilly Hire on the Isle of Dogs, Canary Wharf. And I didn't like the journey there. It was a long day just travelling. And I got offered a job in Swindon, working for an events company in Swindon. So I took that and ended up in Swindon, basically.
There you go. So that's interesting. So what you're describing there, obviously, regarding to working with PAs and that, and doing it for such a long time, you must have been at the forefront of seeing the technology change over the years as well.
With all the changes, the equipment's got a lot simpler.
Yeah.
So you definitely need to have an ear to do it, but just basically where it was a specialist job, and you had to sort of really know how to use a mixing desk and whatever. It's more so now that the mixing desks have come into the sort of amateur end of the market, if you like. So a lot of it, you can get a really good mixer now, and you know, your guy that's running his local band can operate themselves rather than paying somebody to do it.
And things have got lighter and smaller, you know, like as well. They've got smaller. You don't normally get any racks of them and stacks of.
Our latest PA that we bought, they were 1440 watts a side, and they basically, you can carry the whole PA, one in each arm.
Wow.
And it's all built in. It's all digital.
Yeah.
All built in. So once you actually master using the kit, you know, it's great. And
plain sailing.
So that sort of kit, that it's a lot quicker to set up, and a lot more compact, so the bands can basically mix themselves. Although you never get a good mix from a band's point of view.
Of course you don't.
You as a band can't hear the sound behind the speaker.
We'll move on to the last question then, which was about the track that you picked, Bri.
Oh yeah. So one of my favourite bands, this band that we've worked with a lot, is the Black Feathers. And so the track that I chose was between two, I guess, but one of them that sticks out is The Ghosts of Eaton Well by the Black Feathers. I was sort of in two minds between that and Holy Water, but I thought, we're in the video for that one, so it's not really right. But, yeah.
Never seen a miracle before. Been looking at the inside of this open door, but I've seen things that I've never seen before. Now the ghosts have eaten well. I never used to do what I was told. Mama always told me not to be so bold, but that's easy now that I am growing old, and the ghosts have eaten well. ghosts of Eden were.
The track there is The Ghosts Have Eaten Well from the Black Feathers. And if you've not heard or seen the Black Feathers before, you really do need to look them up. It's Ray and Sean, who are based in Cirencester. They just duo, they do all their own tracks, incredible guitar work, incredible vocals, and they are well worth looking up. They do quite a lot of streaming stuff at the moment, so check them out, the Black Feathers.
I listened to them on YouTube earlier, and I actually thought it was magnificent.
Mm-hmm. And we forgot to talk to Bry in his interview earlier on, but Bry and Denise do have their own video podcast, which, you know, those programs you get sometimes on BBC4 where they strap a camera to the front of a barge and then it's like a 3-hour program of just that one shot down a canal. They basically do that. So Bry's got a couple of GoPros stuck to the boat and they go down a canal, and then Denise will narrate her way along. So if you go onto YouTube and look for Narrowboat Living, that's where you will find them. Time for a bit of news. Kieran, I wanted to start with a bit of news about yourself because you did a gig in the last week, a socially distanced streaming gig with real musicians in a real venue.
It's true. I did it at Trowbridge Town Hall on Monday and Tuesday, as with Gavin Osborne from Rural Music Wiltshire. So the Monday night was with Tamsin Quinn, who will be known as a soloist locally. We played one of their songs earlier in the podcast, many months ago. And she's also part of the traddy harmonious folk band, The Lost Trades, who have an album out in June. So that's dead exciting. So she plays. And then we had Kid Carpet from Bristol, who we played earlier in the podcast as well. Mere coincidence. We just happened to be dealing with the right people. We had Gavin himself, who we played a comedy set. And we had a young lady called Stevie, don't remember her surname, but all effectively local musicians from the area. We recorded them. They did 45 minutes each. That will get edited down by a chap called Jamie, who is a film editor, and that will become a live stream available on YouTube via the Town Hall Arts in Trowbridge channels. And it was just wonderful to actually be in a room with the musicians again, with people. There was only 5 of us, and we all wore masks, and we were all socially distanced. No one touched each other. But we actually did work. You can probably tell my mental health. I'm really happy and buzzing that I got to do this, and it was wonderful. And I just cannot wait to get back to doing this again. It's going to feel brilliant, and it's really going to be the thing that we all need. I can't wait.
Another bit of news, and I'm just going to say a few words and then let you have a nice Kieran rant, because I know how much you love to do these.
It's about PRS, isn't it?
I saw they were in the news again. What have they been up to?
Is that what you're about to ask?
So PRS are the people who collect royalties for musicians, but they kind of tend to only give them to the top level of musicians, which Kieran's got a bugbear about. But they've done something else to upset you, haven't they?
What it amounts to is if you donate money or you pay money to see a stream, you have to pay a proportion of that to PRS. For a live music show, that proportion is between 3 and 4% on average. Okay, so 100 quid, you pay 4 quid PRS. It's not like that, but you get the idea. Now, if you earn £250, you have to pay £22.50. And if you earn over £251 on your stream, you have to pay £44. So if you earn, let's just say for argument's sake, you earn 250 quid, you're now paying 50 quid out to PRS. That's 20% tax rate. That is a load of cobblers. And to make it worse, if you earn over £500 on your stream, it says, contact us for a quote. I mean, it is half-baked, half ill thought out, makes absolutely no sense to anything they've previously done. Is pluck the figure out of thin air. No one understands how they reached the point. I absolutely despise them, really do. But this also affects charity events. If you donate money, that also affects the charities. So Frank Turner, who's earning 10 grand on his weekly streams to save a venue, now has to give a proportion of that to PRS. And what are PRS meant to do? They return, it's a mechanical royalty, so they return that money to the artist. I can tell you something now, whatever they take off Frank Turner, he will not be getting a lion's share back of that. But yeah, they're there for the musicians really, but I'm not entirely sure the musicians are getting a good deal out of it. But I'm not a musician, so we'll get PRS on one day to defend themselves.
But unlike we do with other guests, just don't send him in the previous show's link, because then he will never come on.
Come on.
Just say, we're starting a new podcast. We haven't got any episodes, but do you want to come on?
You will know I'll be fair, John, and I'll be polite to him. Of course I will.
I do love it when you get off, get on your high horse and just carry on. I'm going to have to cut most of that out, but you know that already. If any bands want to get in touch with us, the email address is sheerisolation@gmail.com. We've got a nice little collection of music, videos and stuff in there that we're going to use in future episodes. And thank you for listening to us. We'll be back next week. Kieran, I believe you have some work to go and do, so thank you for taking a quick break to record this.
Absolute pleasure, John.
See you next week.
Take care, man.
All right, bye.
Bye.